Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeice. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice, and we are here with Klaus Kindor. How are you
Good
doing?
Afternoon. I'm well. How are you, Ryan?
Classic Car Holdings.
Yes.
I was so excited when you said you'd do this show.
Thanks.
I'm always been a fan of cars in general, but obviously classic and vintage cars is your background.
Yes.
And would it be safe to say that it all started back in 1978 down in Newport Beach? I think that was one of the, Chick Iverson
It started
Porsche?
it started for me in 1978.
Okay.
That's when I got into the car business, but it actually started quite a bit earlier. My parents immigrated in 1958. And my dad actually came over as a technical instructor for Porsche. So
Okay.
I've been around these cars literally my entire life. It's a passion that I have.
And do you think that nexus or connection with your dad and specifically being involved in Porsches plays a big part in you being
Oh, absolutely.
passionate about specifically Porsches? You sell
Absolutely.
all types of cars, but Porsche's probably your favorite.
Yeah, Porsches are probably still my favorite car. There's a lot of great cars out there.
What do you feel like in 78 for you when you were working at Chick Iverson Porsche in terms of the business? And we all have different hobbies and different things we're interested in, but sometimes it's difficult to combine that hobby or passion with the business end.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like you gathered or learned in one of those first jobs at the Porsche dealer in Newport
The
Beach?
biggest thing, obviously, I had an opportunity to work in a field that for me wasn't work. Loving automobiles, and I mean truly having a passion for cars, and being in the industry, for me, it's not work. I love what I do. I love the cars that I work with, the people who love these automobiles. It's a community that is, the enthusiasm is just enormous. And so for me, as an 18-year-old kid,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to work at a Porsche store in Newport Beach, California, for crying out loud.
I know you're throwing out some pretty
I mean,
amazing variables there.
It was huge. The clients that I had were amazing people, and some of them were pretty well known. And as an 18-year-old young man, it was pretty neat.
But Klaus, I think you make a really good point when you said the individuals, the clients, the customers that you're dealing with are excited and passionate about what you're guiding them through.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, there are different occupations where that's not necessarily the case. And I love, as a practicing attorney, I love what I do. However, there are variables there where the high stress scenarios where clients are going through difficult times. I understand very clearly what you're saying, that in the car business, specifically classic cars and Porsches, the excitement level and the positivity is probably real.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got that common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I could do what you do.
Well,
To be quite
vice
candid
versa.
with you, yeah, it's
Everybody has their expertise, right?
absolutely. It's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Cars is what I grew up with. After I got done or got into the car business, I then got into sports car racing, and I started as a crew member for a couple of teams, and then I decided I really want to do this myself.
Talk to us a little bit about that. Crew member for a couple teams. What types of cars? What level of racing?
I was fortunate enough, one of my best friends, in fact, my best friend is a kid by the name of Mark Jones. He lives in Phoenix. And Mark and I worked for his brother, Max Jones, who is now the general manager for Chip Ganassi Racing.
Well,
So
yeah.
I was involved with Max and a young man by the name of Tommy Kendall when he was coming up. And I was fortunate enough to be able to crew for Tommy, and we've remained friends over the years. And sports car racing for me, particularly endurance racing, is where it's at. I mean, I love Formula One, and I love all the other facets of
Sure.
racing. I'm not normally a NASCAR roundy round guy. However,
You like more the roads course?
I do
and
like the road
indoor.
courses. However, those NASCAR guys have superb talent. They can drive cars.
Well, just before we went on the air, you and I were talking about our mutual experiences at Daytona in
Right.
terms of when you're at 170 miles an hour. I tell you, that wall is going by real fast.
It gets
and
your attention.
It gets your attention, and your appreciation for these guys and gals with 42 other cars on the road. Incredible.
Yeah,
The talent is real.
At 200 miles an hour, and an inch and a coat of paint.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it is.
So endurance racing, you're talking more like 24-hour Le Mans,
And that's what I
Daytona.
preferred to do as well when I was driving. I like the long hour stuff. I've done 3 25-hour events at now the name escapes me, Thunder Hill, which is up in Willows, California.
Yep.
Great racetrack. For me, that is not only the test of the automobile itself, just finishing a 24 or 25-hour race is an accomplishment, but not only is it an accomplishment for the team and the car, but also for the drivers.
That's the endurance piece of it. Can you make it?
Yeah.
Not only can the machine make it technically, physically, emotionally, but can you make the car make it work for
can you make it last 24 hours?
Right.
And again, if you can just finish that 24 hours, it's a big deal.
Well, one piece that really stood out to me, though, in your background is massive history in racing, the car business, passion for Porsches. But I honestly thought the humility said a lot. You were involved in the SCCA Driving Championship in 2003. Mm-hmm. You were the champion in 2003. Mm-hmm. But then you had an opportunity with Mini Cooper. Mm-hmm. And am I saying it right? Misano, Italy.
Misano, yeah.
Yeah, Circuit Misano in Italy. One of 2 drivers selected to go over there for a race.
One of 2 American drivers.
Correct.
Right.
And then you indicated you got your ass handed to you.
Oh, absolutely. I got my ass handed to me.
I honestly, that really stood out to me because I thought that's somebody that's willing to say pretty good perspective about the whole business.
Well, I consider myself a fairly good driver, and I did win a regional title, not a national title, but a regional title. And then I was called in 2005 to go to Italy and do this thing and represent the United States. Mini had put this thing together. It was called Mini United, and they invited every Mini Cooper owner in Western Europe to show up at this racetrack. We had like 30,000 Mini Coopers there.
That would have been cool.
So
to
like
see.
60,000, 70,000 people. It was huge, and we were the show. The other American driver was a gentleman by the name of Brad Davis, who's on the East Coast. He works for Hendrick Motorsport.
Yeah, Hendrick Motorsports.
And when Brad and I met for the first time in Italy on Friday before the event, we went into the racetrack office, and we were signing paperwork and getting all of our stuff. And I looked at the driver's list and noticed names like Stuck, Winkelhock, Helm. And I looked at Brad and said, "We're going to be like way down here."
But you know what? Bottom line is you were there.
Yeah, and it was great. It was a terrific event. It was my 15 minutes of fame, if you will.
You know what? A lot of fun. As they say, nice to be nominated and your opportunity to be there. But because of those experiences, again, this conversation is combining the business of motorsports and classic cars. And your business, if we haven't said already, is Classic Car Holdings, boutique firm here in town, where you are buying and selling and assisting buyers and sellers looking for their dream, looking for their passionate endeavors in automotive sports. But because of this background, you've also had the opportunity to coach and teach high performance.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how you go about doing that.
Boy.
And the type of person, who shows up and says, I mean, I personally would be interested in that, but who shows up and says, teach me high performance driving?
A lot of people want to learn how to drive their cars well. I think it's terribly, terribly important, particularly if you're buying a really high performance car, whether it be a Porsche or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a BMW M3 or whatever the case may be. The performance potential of the automobile is enormous. Of these new cars today just have amazing
unbelievable
horsepower. They're so fast. I think it would be wise for anyone prior to acquiring one of these automobiles to go to a school and learn how to drive well.
Yep.
When you write the check for a $250,000 Ferrari, you may have the talent to have earned the money to write the check.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean when you write the check you bought
doesn't
the talent
equate
to drive the car.
To the skills to drive it.
And instructing, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I love sitting right seat. And
where generally were you doing that, like physically, geographically?
Mostly in California.
Okay.
Willow Springs, California, Fontana.
Okay.
At California Motor Speedway, Laguna Seca.
Okay.
Those racetracks.
Laguna Seca, there's a legend right there.
Yeah, great place. One of my favorite tracks, actually. And to what I try to get my students to do is understand that smooth is fast. We'll get to the fast part. Let's worry about being smooth. Let's worry about hitting our lines. Let's worry about where we're focusing our vision.
Getting in and out of gears with that high horsepower.
Yeah, but it really comes down to, for the most part, it's all about your vision. It's all about vision skills. The car will go where you look. And the reality of it is if you're looking very, very close in front of the automobile, your anxiety level comes up.
Right.
The further you look ahead, your anxiety level comes down because now you have time to position the car
to
where
react.
you need to. Exactly.
That's a good point, though. And I would say, again, our discussion about Daytona, that's what was so interesting to me is these professional drivers have no time to react at these speeds. 200, 220 F1 racing or high-end 2-mile tracks in NASCAR, there's no time.
But you'd be surprised. The further ahead you look,
the more
all of a
reaction
sudden
time.
you bought yourself a commodity that cannot be bought.
Right.
You bought time. So now I'm looking a half a mile ahead of me, and I can go, okay, I can position the car over here. When I'm looking directly in front of the automobile, I can't do that. I've already gone past it.
Yep, split second.
And because we live in a very focal environment, our computers are right in front of us, our newspapers right in front of us, our television's right in front of us. We have a tendency of looking right in front of us. And when we're driving an automobile, what we really need to do is get our eyes up and take in the whole bloody big picture, even on the street. And particularly, it's even more important on the street. I'm always looking for space.
Yeah, defensive driving.
Yeah, I'm always looking for space. I have never hit space and damaged a car.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And at high speeds and high horsepower, it's extremely relevant,
absolutely.
right? So high performance coaching, a lot of that experience was in California. It sounded like you may be potentially tired of the traffic and the density of people in California. I don't mean dense people, but density.
You mean daft?
Yeah, exactly. Too many.
Yes, yeah, it is. Actually, I grew up here. I went to Bowditch Junior High School in 1970.
No kidding.
Yeah, my dad actually opened the Porsche store here when it was on Fancher.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I go back a ways. And then my dad was given an opportunity. I went to Bowditch Junior High School, and then in '72, my dad was hired by a gentleman by the name of Wozek Polak, who was a huge Porsche dealer in Los Angeles. And in '72, we moved to LA.
Okay.
I went to high school down there. And then, of course, got into the car business myself. And in 2011, we just had enough. And,
But you did come back to Spokane. I find that interesting. Had you, since Bowditch in the early '70s, had you been back?
No.
That kind of fascinates me. What allured you back?
I like this town. It's got a nice small town feel to it. I like the fact that you get 5 or 6 miles outside of town, you're in the middle of nowhere. There's so many things to do here. As an example, in Los Angeles, let's say, for instance, I lived in Orange County. Los Angeles was maybe 30 miles away. And if I wanted to, on a Saturday, go to the Peterson Automotive Museum, as an example, it could take me 35 minutes. It could take me 4 hours. I do travel to LA every now and then to buy cars for clients.
Yeah, you can fly in, fly out.
I fly in and I try to get out just as quickly as I possibly
hit the major auctions, the Phoenix probably, Phoenix, Vegas, LA, Florida.
But I do contemporary cars too.
Okay.
I have a lot of clients who they're looking for, whether it be an Audi or a BMW or a Porsche or a car for their kid, their first-time car. I go to large wholesale auctions where there are really, really good lease return cars available. I don't go to the junk auctions.
No, I know what you're saying.
They're really, really good cars.
But with your dealer license, you have access to all these respective shows, auctions, inventory.
And I sit down with a client. This is the car they want, and we look at 3 or 4 or 5 different automobiles, and we agree to a price before I buy the car.
Right. Where do you want to be?
Yeah.
Here. How bad do you want the car? How high do you want to go?
And not only that, but I like giving my clients I like affording them the ability to, this is what I want to pay. I don't want to exceed this amount. And so what I do is I try to find the best bloody car that I can, normally a lease return car, because they're really, really well maintained, they're well taken care of, because the penalties are so severe if they're not.
Right.
And we will agree to a price before I buy the car. At these auctions that I go to, though, as an example, Riverside on Thursdays, they'll sell somewhere upwards of 2,000 automobiles in less than 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Wow.
I've got to have a plan marching in there. I've got to
you got to have your script. Your
exactly.
game plan. Yep.
I've got 40 or 50 seconds to buy the car. So I sit down with my client and we go, okay, this is the max that you're willing to pay for the automobile. I need to now be able to buy the car for this, pay the auction fee, get the car here, pay myself, and stay within your budget. And if I get outbid, I simply walk away.
Yep.
No surprises.
But I think that's a true intelligent business person. You know when to walk away.
Yes.
You know your price limitations.
I don't want to surprise my client.
Right.
I'm not going to call you up and say, Ryan, it was only another $500.
Yeah.
That wasn't the budget.
Yeah, or 5,000,
Exactly.
10,000. We were talking about some of these high-end cars.
Exactly. That wasn't the budget.
We're going to take a break here in a second, but I do want to throw out you also were a judge at the highly regarded Concours d'Elegance.
Yes.
That had to be unreal. I've stood on the 18th hole.
At Pebble?
No cars, though. It wasn't the it wasn't the Concours. They said come right in and take a look, but I would love to actually go to the Concours.
There was a time that I worked for Mercedes-Benz. I worked for Mercedes-Benz for almost 17 years. And I was asked to judge events on post-war Mercedes-Benzes, which means normally 300 SL Gullwings, 300 SL Roadsters. So there's an awful lot of learning to do. These cars were built before I was.
Right.
But yeah, the level
Oh gosh.
of restoration, the how perfect these cars are.
And I'm not sure, at least reputation-wise, and you would know, but it appears to be that is one of the coup de grace. I mean, in terms of the Concours d'Elegance, in terms of the best of the best.
A good Concours like Pebble or Amelia Island on the East Coast, or even others, can really help the value of an automobile if they place well. It can have a big effect on what that car will sell for later.
Well, my experience in watching those, as we were chatting earlier, is chasing classic cars, whether it be Amelia or Pebble Beach, and watching several of those episodes as they take those cars through that auction or the Concours.
Yeah.
Let's take a short little break and come right back with Klaus Kindor.
Thank you.
Classic Car Holdings.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
I'm Jade Becker, and I'm a senior at Chewelah High School. I'm at STCU's Money Live event. In this scenario that we played today, I was a realtor. My spouse was a city worker. We had an 11-month-old child, and there was a lot of spending for that child, like diapers and formula, and had to buy toys and clothing. I'm very glad that I had this experience. It was super helpful. You need this to get far and ahead in life. I'm Jade Becker, and STCU is here for good.
The following is sponsored by our friends and community supporters at McNeice Wheeler Attorneys. McNeice Wheeler is a boutique law firm in Spokane, handling matters in both Washington and Idaho. Areas of law include business law, wills, trusts and estates, family law, personal injury and wrongful death, and real estate matters. For your full-service legal needs, contact McNeice Wheeler Attorneys.
Welcome back to Business Talks, and we're here chatting with Klaus Kindor, Classic Car Holdings. We're talking about Porsches, vintage cars, modern cars, high-performance cars, high-performance coaching. You've really had the opportunity to touch on many, many aspects of this industry.
I've been really fortunate.
And I think, as we were saying at the beginning, that is fortunate for anyone to be in an occupation that you love, that there is a passion, and you uniquely over many years and a lot of experience, but have combined the two, working hard, working for several companies that have given you the opportunities to learn the business, but be in a business that you actually love showing up every day.
Yeah.
You know, you're buying cars for people that want specific cars,
Yeah.
creating some great outcomes.
And I'm also consigning cars. You know, I've got a lot of clients who they nowadays, and I don't blame them, they don't want people coming to their homes.
Totally get it. Whether it be Craigslist, eBay type issues. Let's talk about that a little bit, though, and the different aspects of classic car holdings. You made it clear that vintage and classic, yes, passion is Porsches, etc. But give us a little bit of a broad spectrum of what you do at Classic Car Holdings, because that could be detailing the cars that somebody's bringing in, either for consignment, for sale. Tell us the individual pieces that make up what you're doing at Classic Car Holdings.
I buy and sell cars. I consign automobiles for my clients. I do detail automobiles. I'm a one-man show. I have no other employees. I'm a hands-on kind
Well,
of
at least
guy.
we know who to blame.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I'm a hands-on guy. I like when I do something, I want to make sure that it's done the way I want it done. I won't rely on somebody else to detail a car for me. Anyway.
You want to do it yourself?
Yeah, I want to do it myself. I also do I buy a lot of cars for my clients. Clients who are looking for either something for themselves or something for their child or something for their business. They need a truck, they need a delivery van, whatever the case may be. I'll go out and find that particular vehicle. I do detailing, I do consignment work, I do photography, automotive photography.
That's interesting too. So the photography part, and I think you've been in some very high-end auto magazines in terms of the photography. Would you agree that in the highly internet sales world, the photography and the presentation of the vehicle is probably huge?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The simplest thing to do is go to Craig's and look at some of the stuff that's on there, and I look at some of these photographs and I go, oh my goodness.
Which interestingly, probably in certain times, could be really nice cars.
Oh yeah.
But presented improperly.
Exactly. I mean, they're full of trash, or the car hasn't been washed, or the photos are just really poorly done. And I think if you're going to try to sell something on Craig's or eBay or whatever the case may be, it's got to be presented well enough that somebody will actually stop and look at it.
Right. But that's the service you're providing.
Yes.
Rather than so-and-so got home late from work and, hey, honey, will you go out and take a quick shot on your cell phone of this particular car from the front or this or that, and, hey, I forgot to wash it. That's a big piece of the value added. Not only do you know the details of either the car you're buying or consigning or selling, you know how to present it properly for what that car is.
The idea is, again, if you're just advertising or marketing a particular automobile, there might be 1,000 cars that somebody's going to look at. But what photograph makes them stop?
Right.
And go, ooh, I want to look at that more.
Well, on that point, I personally, looking at your website, many of them. But again,
I take checks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a car guy. I know, we were chatting, and I think you've already sent me some that I feel like I need, and we had a good conversation about that. It's tough sometimes to put it in the need category, but these cars are impressive. What is the website specifically, so our listeners?
It's www.classiccarholdingsllc.com. Yeah.
Perfect.
I unfortunately built the site. I am not a computer guy.
Well, you know what, though? The pictures present themselves very well.
Thank you very much.
Very well.
You're being very kind.
No, they do. So what is it at its core? We talked about your dad being involved in Porsches in the early days, which means you logically are around Porsches and probably had a bit of an affinity for them. What do you think's different about Porsches? You're passionate about them, but what's different about
today
Porsche
versus?
Yeah, I know that probably was a little too broad, but
wow, I'm
yeah,
a
because
fan, I'm a fan of the older stuff.
I know what you're saying, because if we get into talking about supercars, and there's plenty of unbelievable automotive inventory out there from many different companies. Yeah. So if you're talking about it going back to what, would you say a late 60s, 70s Porsche?
I think cars have just simply become way too complicated. I understand that everybody wants all these wonderful gadgets that are available in today's automobiles and all these driving aids that not only Porsche but Mercedes-Benz and BMW and everybody else, Chevrolet offers.
Yeah.
But they have become so complex that there's going to be a time where you go to repair your automobile and the repair cost exceeds the value of the car.
Oh, for sure.
And I think this is
because so computer driven,
more prevalent. I'm a guy who likes old, easy, non-complicated. Yeah, I can fix that myself stuff.
Right. But the design is a wowing factor.
Well, yeah, but if you look at Porsche, the only manufacturer that has built a car for over 50 years that has basically the same design in the 911, which started in 1964
the Carrera.
today, and the car looks very much the
Yep,
same.
same lines.
And you get in one of these modern cars, and they're so fast, and they do everything so well, and they stop so good.
But that takes you back to, I think, your very legitimate, experienced advice that please don't go buy one of these cars, even though you might be able to, so to speak, but know how to drive it.
Learn how to drive
They're
it.
so powerful and dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
It's very, very true. It's very, very true. These cars can be weapons in a nanosecond.
Right.
I used to do a teenage driving program down in Southern California, and I would ask the kids, and I meant this not in a fun kind of way, but it's rather scary. How many people can you kill with one gun?
Yeah.
And really, it's about one.
Right.
How many people can you kill with one car?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Scary.
It is. It's frightening. And we're handing keys to lethal weapons to these kids that
16
have
years
absolutely
old.
no idea how to control an automobile.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that we, as either a state or a country, whatever the case may be, had better driving education.
Yeah. What would you recommend on that front?
I'll tell you what the Germans do. It takes you a year. It's expensive.
Courses a year?
Courses a year. It's very expensive.
Probably
you can't
in
have your
classroom.
license until you're 18. And they've taken it very, very, very seriously. To me, driving is a privilege. It's not a right. And it should be taken as such. It's serious.
Well,
It's very serious.
I appreciate that, because I think, especially in a climate like we have up here, you got 16-year-old drivers, 17-year-old drivers, any age driver. If you're not paying attention, or with our handhelds these days in terms of distracted driving, you're right on with probably additional
education. The only thing we should be
education.
doing when we're driving an automobile is driving an automobile.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
There's plenty to do just doing that.
Yep. Well, you said earlier, creating that space and understanding from a defensive driving standpoint where everybody else is on the road and where you are.
It's as simple as mirror adjustment, to be quite candid with you. Most people have their mirrors adjusted so they can see the side of their automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to steal your gas tank at 80 miles, or your gas cap at 80 miles an hour, I promise. Right? And
You're right,
you don't have to look at the wonderful wax job you did on the left rear quarter of your car. The rear of the car is going to go the same direction as the car.
Right, guaranteed.
I promise you.
Yeah. Every time.
And yet, if you move the mirrors out far enough that you can actually see the lanes next to you, and move your center mirror so that it's properly adjusted.
Yeah, seeing behind you.
And all you got to do is about 8 to 10 seconds, take a look at all three mirrors, and you'll know what's going on around you always.
Well,
always.
Again, you've had that experience not only from a teaching standpoint, but high speeds, needing to make those decisions quickly, that does parlay itself onto our city streets here. In terms of, isolating why you're passionate about Porsches or which era, tough question for you. But if you could pick any Porsche, production model 1 through today, dollar amount doesn't matter. What's the one you'd choose?
If I could have any Porsche.
Any Porsche.
It'd have to be a 73 911 RS.
73 911 RS.
Yeah, a very, very rare car. Initially, they only built 500.
Does that have the whale tail or not?
It has what's called a ducktail.
Yeah, the smaller version.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly right.
Yep.
And they were very, very limited production cars. They were built really for racing. And if I understand the story correctly, the car was actually debuted, if I'm not mistaken, at the Paris Auto Show.
I think I know the model you're talking about. Does the original one have the white paint job with the...
Can be white, can be...
Yeah, I thought it had a specific decal orientation on it.
You'll
But...
see there is a specific decal on the ducktail that says RS.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's, unless you know,
Mm-hmm.
you really don't know. But those cars were done with lightweight bodies and lightweight glass, thinner glass rather than the heavier glass. Initially, again, there were supposed to be 500 cars built, and I guess when the car debuted in France, the car sold out immediately, almost instantaneously, to Porsche's surprise. And they built more cars. I can't remember exactly how many they produced. Porsche, unfortunately, doesn't always or rarely ever gives out total production numbers. But I think it's somewhere around 1,200 cars, something like that. A really good RS today, an early car, one of the first 500, $1.5 million.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
But you made this point that you got to know what you're looking for. And I think that's true of it is true of any collector item or inventory of anybody that's into collecting this or that goes to auctions, you can have that particular 73 RS sitting there up on the chopping block, so to speak, and the one right next to it's a very, very good-looking 89 911 Carrera, and one is just massively more expensive, but to the untrained eye or unknowledgeable buyer.
They're similar cars.
Right?
Yeah, they're similar cars.
Yeah.
Cars comes down to, a lot of the times when it comes to collectible automobiles, it's not only the car itself, it's also the car's provenance. The service history of the automobile, what kind of documentation do you have with the car. All this stuff is terribly, terribly important when it comes to collectible cars.
Potentially Steve McQueen drove the car or something like that.
There
right.
you go.
Right.
And that's actually a perfect example. When Steve McQueen, if you ever watched the movie Le Mans,
oh yeah,
at the beginning of the movie, he's driving a 1970 slate gray 911S.
Yep.
That car sold in Monterey, I want to say it was 5 or 6 years ago, for $1.3 million. And it was because it was Steve's car.
Right.
It had that provenance. And it was because it was a movie car.
Oh, yeah. It's the one, hey, watch this on this particular movie. That's my car.
You know, and when the Porsche market went nuts, which it did about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, it went absolutely crazy. I think we can almost direct that to that particular automobile. Because at the time, that car was probably, because it was McQueen's.
Yep.
I think the estimate on the car was $250,000, $300,000. And the car went through to $1.3 million.
Well, it reminds me of the stories along with McQueen's the Bullet.
Yeah, the Mustang.
Yeah, and the fact that they found that, and then I think they even had it in essentially a clear box, if you will, in D.C. on
his driving suit, his watch.
Yeah.
I mean, McQueen. There's a really cool thing that's done every year. Excuse me. At a place called the Boys Republic in Chino, California, and Steve's son Chad McQueen puts this on. It's a charity event. It is Porsches. I mean, it's Porsches
across the board.
And there's great cars that show up, and all that money goes. The proceeds go to the Boys Republic, which was a continuation school that Steve McQueen actually went to. It's a working farm. And it's a wonderful event that's done every year, and I admire the heck out of Chad for doing it. It's really quite good.
Keeping that legacy going.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's me. Klaus, we're out of time, but there's no doubt we're going to be chatting more.
I'd love it.
You're going to be here at Spokane Talks, chatting about cars. I almost said who doesn't like cars, but plenty of people don't like cars. But you know, that's what my wife always tells me. You know what? Everybody doesn't think like you. But in this case, when you're thinking cars, like, really? Not everybody loves cars? Lots of people love cars. Lots of people love Porsches and have an appreciation for Porsches. Classic Car Holdings, I'd encourage anybody to take a look at the website, look at the quality of the photography, the quality of the cars, all different types of cars, as you indicated. Porsches for sure. But I know one on there right now is a reproduction Porsche that I think you just sold, like was it a 53 reproduction?
No, I just
sold the orange one.
That was actually, that was an RSK reproduction.
Good looking car.
Yeah, great looking car.
Good looking car.
Great looking car.
A lot of good looking cars. Check out the website, and we appreciate you watching. See you next time.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.